Johnny Ramone would still turn out in support of Rob at House's 2003 ArcLight Cinemas premiere. Like Pollard, Sid Haig was also known to go off script and experiment with a scene. Unlike Pollard, however, several of Haig's impersonations actually made it into the movie. When Chad Bannon's Carl demands that Spaulding reach for the sky, the screenplay indicates that he obeys and raises his hands. Haig improvised his character doing so with middle fingers extended in defiant protest. When David Reynolds' Richard threatens him a moment later with a stuttered line about Kansas City watermelon, Spaulding has no scripted retort. Haig, however, squinted in confusion and asked, "What the fuck is that supposed to mean?" Haig's biggest contribution to the scene, however, was shoving a piece of chicken in Bannon's face and telling him to get lost. "Why don't you just take your mama home some fried chicken, and then I won't have to stuff my boot all up in your ass?" Now off script, Bannon improvised a response. "I don't like chicken, and I hate clowns." As Spaulding, Haig grits his teeth and growls at this deep-cutting insult. "I took over for my pa when the Duke nabbed the Oscar." "Well, son, how many Dukes do you know about?" "Fuck your mama. Fuck your sister. Most of all, fuck you." "God damn." "Bust that crapper, I'm gonna bust your ass." "It just tastes so damn good." "I know all about what you want to know all about." "Good godly Miss Molly, I got me a live one." "Dog will hunt." "The boogeyman is real, and you found him." "Why are you so sad? Isn't this what you begged for?" "There he is, the living legend himself. Ta-da! Dr. Satan!" "Now don't get shy on me. Ask your hero some questions." "Now don't blow this last-in-a-lifetime opportunity."
Janie Richter saw a face staring at her from outside the bedroom window. A man peering in from a tiny patch of lawn. A simple shard of moonlight casting immobile features. A permanent sneer beneath cruel and searching eyes. People didn't look like that, not even in Los Angeles. The phone on the floor beside Janie's bed rang and startled her. Her foot caught the cradle and she went tumbling, kicking the receiver off with a ding as she fell face first against the glass, getting a good view of the lonely sidewalk and the empty cul-de-sac beyond it. Whoever had been there was gone now. A homeless drunk, she figured, as had been the case many times. It happened when yours was the last house on the street and the only thing outside it was a curved guardrail holding back the trees. People used that turnaround all the time. People looking to get off the beaten path, wanting privacy without having to go trekking into the hills on Mulholland in order to do it. In the time that Janie had lived there, a little over a year now, she'd seen a lot. A silver Porsche, probably belonging to some studio executive, pulling beneath the shadows so the young and hungry starlet riding shotgun could disappear into his lap. Or the steady stream of high schoolers who came here with their headlights already off, thinking they were being sly, settling in to either smoke up or make out, and usually both. And then there were the homeless who shambled to and from the woods, as if there was some hidden enclave out there, almost always carrying fresh paper bags in their fists. One had knocked on the door once, jiggling the knob, asking if Eleanor was in there, over and over again, while Janie hid in the closet with a meat tenderizer and waited 40 minutes for the police to arrive. That's all it had been, right? Another drunk looking in, spotting the bedroom light from the street and getting curious? Getting a show? Janie realized. Thoughts interrupted by a full-body shiver that made her remember that she was standing against the window in a towel that barely covered her thighs. The air suddenly colder than ice. She drew the curtain and felt much better. An illusion, just some plastic flap dangling over a thin pane of glass. But out of sight, out of mind worked just fine most nights. And if she'd remembered earlier to pull it down, she wouldn't have seen that awful face at all. Wouldn't be on edge right now. Janie took the towel away from her body and draped it over the clanking cast iron radiator as she turned up the heat. On the floor, her big toe nudged the overturned phone receiver where a caller was asking, "Hello? Hello?" into the air. "Oh," Janie said, bending down to answer as small scratches fell against the back door, slow brushes on the heavy wood. In addition to losing her husband, Lila would have been shown as having been haunted for the last 20 years by the memories of the terrible events which transpired at the Bates Motel. She's been single since her husband died, January notes, and she has a daughter who is going off to college. January reveals that Lila's daughter was named Jamie, who was intended to be played by a burgeoning star and newly minted scream queen who had familial ties to the first film. "We wanted to have Jamie Lee Curtis on the project to play Vera Miles' daughter," January says, revealing that the daughter of Psycho's most famous victim, Janet Leigh, was being eyed to participate in the sequel. "We didn't go out to her. We needed to set up the project before we went to her. I saw some report that she thought it was silly and that there was something about being killed in a hot tub as an homage to her mother or something like that. But there was no hot tub in our script, so I don't know who came up with that." He laughs. Once Lila hears about Norman's death, she decides to purchase Bates Motel and reopen it as a bed and breakfast to purge the nightmares she's had for the place for so many years. Her daughter thinks she's crazy, wondering why she would be driven to this. It's a surprising choice, but one that January notes was firmly rooted in character. "I thought about the psychology of the Lila character, the psychology of going through that last shocking scene from Psycho with the light bulb and the mother in the chair, and I thought, what does that do to someone? Audiences had nightmares about that for a long time, but what about the person that lived it? What would it do to them? And how do you try to fix that for yourself?" Working in space within the law was profitable, but the more clandestine work paid more for everyone. Much more. On Titan, a moon supposedly off limits, deep below its orange polar clouds, a vessel from Earth sat at the bottom of a deep crater. Titan's craters had been named after the gods of many religions, Greek, Etruscan, Celtic, but it was to this crater, named for the Norse god of justice, Forseti, that a team had been sent by the NTI Corporation on a mission of minor geological research in direct competition with their German rivals, Richter Dynamics. Both companies were in a race to see who could harvest the rarest of elements first. Regulations and laws be damned. But this minor geological research was anything but minor and most definitely not research. "This is fucking fantastic," Howard said aloud as he looked at the readings on his device in his hand. The glass visor of his spacesuit misted up from his excited breathing as a pulsing blue light reflected on it, filling his vision. From within the excavated opening in front of him, this otherworldly glow crawled outward, seeping into the area where he stood. Through this exposed wall, 3 columns made of glass plates and metal tubing framed a central column which threw out this gently strobing illumination. Far above this underground tunnel, upon the moon's surface, a storm raged violently. The rumble of its thunder and lightning crashed in the distance, echoing threateningly down through the ground to where Howard now stood. "There's something over here, too," an excited voice rang out over Howard's headset. "Something... Jesus, just get over here." It was just about the only time he had seen his daughter misbehave. The image was so unlike Celia that Sean couldn't help but laugh. The contrast of monstrous features and her usual baby clothes, tape-fastened diapers, and an I Heart My Daddy's t-shirt added to the comical effect. Still, he didn't want that kind of image again. He was afraid if Jack showed him other such transformations, they might change the way he thought about his daughter. Hence Rule 7 about Jack's powers: never alter Celia's appearance. Other rules Sean made included, number 1, never alter the view while we're driving, a safety issue. Number 2, never mess with the appearance of food. Number 4, never change anything in the bedroom during intimate moments. Self-explanatory. He added rules 8 and 9 before Jack's untimely death, when Celia had barely passed her 4th birthday.
All this time, their daughter had never done anything that prompted him to recall Rule 7 and the demon baby floating over her crib. "You're okay by yourself?" Usually this was a silly question to ask Celia. If she had books or pen and paper, she never felt alone. "It's nice and quiet." Another glance at the door. "Nobody to overhear." A mischievous glimmer shone from her eyes, not like the evil Celia of Jack's invention, but the familiar daughter who had accompanied Sean on long drives, brought recordings about historical oddities, and hoped some smug expert or spiritualist fraud would agitate her dad enough that he'd launch into a story of his own. On those occasions, she acted playful, like she was tricking him, but he suspected she knew he was in on the game, happy to share another adventure from his and Jack's younger days. With this video call, with evasive answers about her new job at camp, and the play of eyes averting from the screen, maybe Celia was testing different tactics to prompt him into a story. This time, however, he wasn't sure how much was an act. The more he reflected about her behavior during the video call, the more he thought she didn't simply need to be entertained. She wanted to feel close to her father, to both her fathers. "You said you got a couple hours." Celia nodded. "Okay. Here's a longer story, and one I didn't have the nerve to tell you in front of Nora."